والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. It is an honor and a privilege to be with you all today. I'm delighted to have accepted and even received this invitation to be here and to be surrounded by Your Excellency, respected elders, scholars, and community members and community leaders as part of this joyful gathering today for Eid al-Fitr. I just heard now the news, which is lovely, the fact that this is the first ever Indonesian community centre / Islamic centre mosque in the UK. And it is a real privilege to be here and to celebrate this momentous occasion with you all. This is also a reflection of Britain's incredible diversity and to celebrate the amazing richness of our blessed Omar, which has people, over 2 billion people from across the globe, the largest and fastest growing religion in the world. And we have seen also, despite the fact that for the first time in this country, it is a majority non-Christian country, and the latest statistic that was shown, we still see Islam is growing and growing. And that is by virtue of the incredible virtue and blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and from the message of the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him. I've been asked to talk a little bit about the month of Ramadan and also how can we perfect our character and be successful good leaders in Britain. And actually it also begins with how we are as a ummah. Wherever you go in the world, despite whether it's in Britain or in Europe, Africa, Asia, America, we carry a code of conduct. And this code of conduct was exemplified by our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessing be upon him, alayhi salatu wassalam, which is, he came to what? He came with a message to perfect character. لِيُتَمَّ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. He came to perfect it. And the beauty of the Rasul ﷺ was by the fact that he was able to speak to everyone. And he was able to do so in a very unique way. So he would speak in a certain way with certain groups, and he would deliver a message to a particular people in a particular way. But the message, of course, of Islam is the one message. But the beauty is how it was able to transcend different languages, different cultures. Yes, the Quran was sent down in Arabic. Yes, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the man chosen, who is the best of all mankind, was an Arab. But as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I do not look to your appearances or to your wealth, but I look towards your hearts and your actions. And this is the code of conduct, is to look at our hearts and our actions. As we know in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَلَا بِذِكْرِ اللَّهِ تَطْمَئِنُّ الْقُلُوبِ. Verily, by the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find tranquility. Itma'nan, this feeling of serenity, of tranquility. Is it therefore not a coincidence that in Ramadan, why do we love Ramadan so much? Is because when we immerse ourselves so much in the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and dhikr, that we find our hearts are serene. We find our hearts and our spiritual status is in a place of tranquility. And often we try to think, how do we maintain this? How do we continue this level of spirituality during the year? And this is reflective of how we deal with ourselves, how we look after our bodies. You know, in Ramadan, subhanAllah, some people, when it comes to iftar, they have a huge iftar meal, but then they can't move afterwards. They need like 10, 15 hours to recover from after the massive iftar meal. And subhanAllah, Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he talks about fasting in 3 different levels. The first level of fasting is from food and drink. This is like the basic level of fasting. Then there is the fasting of what our human body. So be careful of not touching which is haram, or doing something, an action which is haram, or saying something with our tongue which is haram. So this is also fasting of the limbs, fasting of the body. And then the ultimate level of fasting is, after you complete these two levels, is the fasting of the mind and the heart. SubhanAllah. And so it is by no coincidence that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that hearts find tranquility through the rules of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we have this in Ramadan, and Ramadan is connected to Siyam. So actually by virtue of fasting, so whether it is, we are in the month of what right now? Month of Shawwal, correct. And we have an amazing opportunity, because the hadith of the Rasul is very clear. For those who fast Ramadan and follow it with 6 days of Shawwal, it is like what? Fasting like for the year, but in some narration for your lifetime. The word dahr, meaning here either a lifetime or a year, subhanAllah. So imagine that, the rewards is immense. So I encourage everyone here, inshallah, to try if they can, physically if they can, in terms of health-wise, be able to fast these 6 days of Shawwal, because also it reminds us of the lovely feeling of Ramadan as well. We feel like Ramadan blues after Ramadan, right? After Ramadan is a dip. And we feel we miss Ramadan, we miss the gathering. How come people are not as hospitable as they are in Ramadan? You know? What happened? There is a joke in Turkey, which is, after Ramadan, we call them the next blessed 11 months. You know? So the next blessed 11 months, and then we have Ramadan. But honestly, let's try our very best to take I suppose, the positive attributes and characteristics of Ramadan and try to implement it in our lives. Again, look, Ramadan is special because of the month of Ramadan. You know, we see more charity given in Ramadan because of the blessing of Ramadan. We see more reading of Quran in Ramadan because of Ramadan. We see more fasting than ever in a whole year in Ramadan because of Ramadan. We see charity, joy, community relations coming together because of the beauty of Ramadan. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not only the Lord of Ramadan, but the Lord of Shawwal and Rajab and Sha'ban and Dhul Hijjah and throughout the whole calendar. So it is important for us to try to maintain that sort of level of spirituality. So when the question is around how do we make positive contribution in Britain, it goes back to wherever you are in the world, you are carrying a passport, if I can say. And it's like, with Your Excellency's permission, it's like a diplomatic passport you carry, which is connected to your faith in many ways. We are all here ambassadors of Islam. Wherever you go, whether down the street here, or in the local council, or you go to a different city in the UK, or traveling around the globe, you carry that with you. You're an ambassador of Islam. So whenever you are meeting someone or speaking with someone, the moment you speak harshly with someone, the moment they feel a bit distant away from you. But the moment you speak softly with someone and come to them with, courtesy and understanding and compassion with one another, people are drawn to you, subhanAllah. And just as our hearts are softened by the remembrance of Allah, we should seek to soften hearts and minds of others as well. And that happens through our actions. Because what happens when we forget the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What happens to our hearts? They become hardened. They become hard like a rock. SubhanAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take us away from such people. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a people, whenever we hear the Quran, or whenever we hear the Rasul's name being saluted upon, that our hearts have become softened and we become closer. You know, Omar ibn Khattab, he was seen as a really macho man, you know, radiallahu anhu. He was someone who was really, really tough. But subhanAllah, what embraced him to Islam? What made him cry those tears? It was the ayat of the Quran, subhanAllah. The ayat of the Quran that pierced his heart, subhanAllah. And you know, with the open iftar events, you know, this is our philosophy really, if I can go back to it. You know, our philosophy, and you all are cool, and I really appreciate Muhammad Sasilo here with your family. You know, I think almost 7 or 8 years now, when you first joined as a volunteer, subhanAllah. And then you and your family, year after year, have continued to contribute to support the works that we are doing. And seeing now your daughter, mashallah, take the mantle to do the volunteering. It's honestly inspirational. This is one of the many beauty success stories that I see, is that there is generation upon generation of families being part of something which we all can be part of. And seeing that this is the best form of da'wah in Islam. We are not here to decide on who has hidayah or who doesn't. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the power to give hidayah to whom He wants, and then to take them away as well. This is what we hear in Jum'ah. So Jum'ah every Friday, no? Allahumma hdina fi man hadayt, wa afina fi man afayt, is the dua we make. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He decides. When the Imam says this every single khutbah on Friday, you know, you are the one who puts someone on the right path or can take them astray. SubhanAllah. And so for us, all we can do is be ourselves, refer back to the teaching of the Prophet ﷺ, to be kind with one another, to be compassionate, because this is honestly the best form of da'wah of Islam. To invite, the hospitality. Once people feel this, it's incredible. And just to share a few examples from this year that I heard, you know, so often we had 30 events, and we had across the UK, some in London, across the different cities in the UK. And some people we were working with, for the first time they heard the adhan in public being done live, and they were trembling, subhanAllah. They said their bodies were trembling, they have never heard anything like this. And the adhan, you know, it's not like, mashallah, you know, in Mecca or Medina, the adhan is with like 50 speakers echoing around the whole city. A very simple adhan in a square or in a space in London or elsewhere in the UK. But subhanAllah, this is Allah's wisdom, Allah's power. Is that we emphasize too much on us trying to bring hidayah, whereas as a matter of fact we have forgotten that we are just simply tools. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put us in certain positions where we either can bring people together or we can divide. And we are an ummah of unity. We are an ummah not of division. We are an ummah of bridging, subhanAllah. You know? So it's very, very important that we refer back to this. You know, the art of bridging, the art of actually creating a bridge. It's important not just to take nice selfies or nice pictures of this bridge, but actually to walk on these bridges as well, subhanAllah. And it takes courage to do so. And so it's important for us when we're in this country, in this community as well. It's also great, and I speak from my personal experience, you know, compared to other European countries or other countries around the globe, honestly, we have a real privilege, you know, to be in a country where there's a celebration of so much diversity and openness for different faiths. You saw the coronation of His Majesty the King yesterday, for example. This is the first time in any monarchy, dynasty, or in history, in modern times, we have seen such a multi-faith event. It is quite incredible. Your Excellency, I know you were there, you witnessed this firsthand. To see the fact that you had Muslims and Jews and Hindus and Buddhists and so on and so forth being celebrated. And it's very interesting to hear that the king is, yes, the defender of faith, but also defender of the faiths as well, which is very interesting. So it is also important that for us, as well as we are staying true to ourselves in terms of belonging, we are also providing a safe space for other faiths as well. Because this is again the teaching of the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. This is so important, that we live in a society where we have mutual respect and understanding for one another. And being able to open our doors as we are, and mashallah, the Indonesian community and the diaspora here are probably the best at this, mashallah, tabarakallah. The hospitality, the feeling of, feeling that you have nothing to fear of judgment, or feeling that they actually accept you as one of their own, mashallah, tabarakallah. It's truly an amazing blessing. So, unfortunately, I do not have a magic formula, but the contribution to success, honestly, is to go inwards, to look inwards into our hearts and the status of our hearts. How do we feel? How do we react to the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Because it is honestly those very, very simple things. And as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says so many reminders to us in the Quran that even your children, subhanAllah, and even your wealth is a form of distraction. Subhanallah. Can you believe this? This is not poetry written by a famous poet or a scholar. This is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying this, reminding us that even your children and your wealth is a form of distraction. So remember that this world is very temporary. but what we can do to invest in this world, inshallah, will give us long-lasting life in eternal paradise in Jannah al-Firdaus. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He is able to grant us, inshallah, and accept us into eternal paradise, Jannah al-Firdaus. And we have this beautiful gathering as we have here today in Jannah al-Firdaus. Can you imagine? We're sat here together like this in this amazing gathering in Jannah al-Firdaus. I want to finish off by one last thing, inshallah, if I may. And that is, in the majlis gathering, the Prophet ﷺ was sitting down with his companions. And the Prophet, out of the blue, just out of no conversation, he just uttered a thought out loud to the companions. And he said, "Oh, I miss my beloved." And the companions turned to him and said to him, "Ya Rasulullah, who are your beloved? Where are your companions? We're the closest to you. We have gone to war with you. We have married into our families. We have slept in the same community. We have been raised in the same community. We have done hijrah together. Who are your beloved?" And he says to Rasulullah, no, you are my brothers. You're my companions. But the beloveds are those who I miss, because they're the ones who have not seen me, yet they utter the salutation, the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam. The Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam has raised your ranks at such a high level, it is actually above the companions. When he calls us his beloved, Allahu Akbar. He calls us his beloved. So if you ever feel down or frustrated, or you feel that there is a bit of anxiety, or you're going through a very difficult time, just remember that the status of the Rasul alayhi salatu wasalam, every time you say, Allahumma salli wa sallam ala sayyidina nabina Muhammad, the Rasul is saying, I want to meet this person because they are special, because they have never seen me in real life, yet they believe who I am. After 1,000 years, they have stayed true. And yes, we are all sinners, we all make mistakes. But if we turn back to Allah and we utter these words, subhanAllah, it is the greatest honor to have for us in this dunya, inshallah. So I'll ask us subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept all of our amazing efforts in Ramadan, inshallah, and to accept all of our du'as, inshallah, and to accept all of our qiyam, to accept all of our fasting, to accept all of our charity, inshallah, and to actually allow us to see Allahumma balighna Ramadan as well. It's not too early to say this dua. Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to see Ramadan next year as well. I had the greatest pleasure, alhamdulillah, and I made dua for everyone, that in the last 10 days of Ramadan, for the first time in 10 years, Muhammad, you will know this, I very rarely leave the open of our event. But subhanAllah, this year we have an amazing team, and I had the pleasure in the last 10 days of Ramadan to go a little bit away, and I actually went to go to Mecca and Medina, Mecca only. I sent my parents to Mecca and Medina, but I went to Mecca, alhamdulillah. I actually went to Jeddah for a little bit, and then we had the opportunity where we did Umrah together as a family. This was my sort of #1 bucket list, basically, as they say, is to do Umrah with the family. For those who haven't, I urge you all, inshallah, if you can, if Allah has given you the means to do so, and if not now, then inshallah in the future, you're able to do that, because it is honestly an amazing blessing to go and do that and celebrate and have Umrah in Ramadan, inshallah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who is all compassionate, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those who are compassionate with people. So remember to be compassionate with people, because if you ask for compassion from Allah, then you need to show it to others as well, inshallah. It's a real honor to be here once again. Your Excellency, your elders, your scholars, a real privilege. I ask only but tawfiq for you all, inshallah, with this center, and we are already prepared. So you let us know what you need from us, inshallah. We are prepared to support and help, and we look forward to seeing this being filled with so much joy and success and happiness. And tawfiq, inshallah.